Episode 3 of Daily.Faceoff Rundown Insider Edition, brought to you by Bet365. I'm your host, Irfaan and Gaffar, alongside a man who just got home from celebrating the Toronto Blue Jays, David Pagnotta. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. The liver is recovering. That was a lot of fun, man. Holy crap! That still riding a high on that one. Big Jays fan.
Oh, absolutely. We see that the Toronto Maple Leafs have now changed the timing of some of their games, as have the Toronto Raptors, to help accommodate for fans that want to watch the Blue Jays. So, it should be exciting times, obviously, in Toronto and in LA when they play. But this is a hockey show. We're not going to start in Toronto, where some people believe that is the capital of Canada. It is not. Ottawa is.
Confirmed.
Yeah, and the Ottawa Senators, last year I don't think they had any expectations. You make the playoffs, you play well. Travis Green, many people thought should be, voted for the Jack Adams, is what he did with that group. This year, 2-4-1, 6 in their division, and in the bottom 3 in league goal differential. What is going on in Ottawa, and are there changes coming?
Yeah, it's not a good situation right now. It's not a good start, I should say. And granted, it is early on in the season. It's just 7 games in, but you don't want to fall too far behind the 8 ball because of what you set up last season. You made the playoffs. You want to replicate that this year and make a little more noise and do some damage. Not having Brady Tkachuk in the lineup, obviously, that's not a good thing. It's certainly hurt them, losing their best player overall. But this is a team that, a little bit in the offseason, going into this season, we'd started to hear across the league that they are not afraid to go out and make another big-time move if they need to. They made a big splash last year. They brought in Dylan Cousins at the trade deadline. They moved out Josh Doris as part of that. But it seems like they want to bring in another impact type of addition, specifically up front, to help with the offense, to help spread out the offense a little bit. That seems to be kind of the word on the street right now. I don't think anything is imminent. I don't get the sense that Steve Staios is ready to pull the trigger on a big blockbuster type deal right now, but I do get the sense that he would like to at some point this season to kind of amplify his team's chances at solidifying another playoff berth.
Is there cohesion and does Andlauer want or going to allow Steve Staios to kind of do what he wants when he wants?
Yeah, yes and no to a certain extent. I think there are some parameters in place with respect to the finances and the financials tied to this specifically. I'm not saying necessarily it's full dollar in, full dollar out, but I think if he makes a big move, if Staios makes a big move that incorporates bringing in a big ticket player, some money's got to leave. So I don't think they're just sitting here going, we can add another $10 million or $8 million or whatever. I think it's we'll add 8 if we're moving out 5 kind of thing. So I think it's a combination of, go out and get us another star player, but we have to be cognizant of our internal cap and our internal financial resources. We're gonna have to move a body out. So I think that's kind of where they're at. And look, to be honest, if you're making a big type of move like that anyway, you're probably dealing with a player or two that are moving out. But we'll see kind of, where things go for them as the season progresses. Again, I don't think anything is close right now by any stretch. I don't even know if they've gotten into the thick of things with respect to those types of conversations. But I do think it's something that's on their radar that they'd like to do at some point to help improve their chances, and it may result in a player or two leaving.
Especially with no Brady Tkachuk for the foreseeable future, right? I mean, you lose your captain, obviously a leader, the engine that helps that team go, and a hell of a hockey player. So they're going to have to, if they want to try and replace that, you don't replace a Brady Tkachuk, but maybe they can try and get someone that, looks to alleviate some scoring pressure there in Ottawa. This guy's not known for scoring, but the rest of his team has been, and they are my favorite team to watch right now, and that's the Montreal Canadiens. They're young, they're fast, they're fun, they're all sorts of things. What's going on with Mike Matheson?
Yeah, he's a UFA at the end of the year. He's a local product, a West Island kid that loves playing there, loves being there. And the Canadiens like having him there. And they had some conversations kind of loose conversations back and forth over the summer. Those reignited in preseason. And now with Hudson locked up, with Hughes and Gordon locked up as well, they each have 5-year extensions. I think Mike Matheson may be next in the totem pole. They'd like to keep him, and he'd like to stay. It's a matter of figuring out how to make this work. How do you make the money work? And look, he's making a total of 6.25, I believe, 6.25 million this season, which includes bonus plus his actual salary. I think he'd like something in that range, in that $6 to $7 million range, to stay in Montreal on a multi-year contract. He's 31. He's going to be 32 in the early part of next calendar year of 26. I think the Habs, again, they want to keep him. They like him there. They like his presence. They like what he brings and what he's brought to this group with some of the young kids. But his role has changed a little bit, obviously, with the addition of Hudson and with Noah Dobson. So we'll see here how they can figure something out. They'd like to. Patrick Laine is another guy to look at, but that's more of a let's see how you do in the season before we really get into nitty-gritty of those conversations.
Like, what's the realistic expectation for the Montreal Canadiens? I mean, you made the playoffs last year. It was a great story, and obviously you want to do that again, but can you see them being a team that might add at the deadline, or does it kind of depend where they are?
No, I think they expect to be in a position to add at some point this season and closer to the trade deadline. You make the playoffs last year, you squeeze in with the final wild card spot. I think the expectation now is let's fight for third, or let's fight for one of the 3 spots in the Atlantic. So with the way that they're playing, they keep it up. Without a doubt, I think that Kent Hughes is going to look to add to this group. But it might be more on the complimentary side. I don't think they're going to have to go out there big fish hunting.
No.
Like Ottawa, for example. I don't think that's the case. I think this is more of a let's find some complementary pieces that work with some of these young guys. Look, if they don't sign Matheson, I think they're going to hold on to him and then just take their chances afterwards and figure out something in the offseason if they can. I don't think it's a scenario where even if they're fighting for third or second or just a wild card spot that they would consider moving them. But I think the Habs are going to be in a position where they're going to look to add, man. Like, I think they really want to take some next steps here because of some of these young guys. The most interesting thing to me in the early going is that Dobish has been playing better than Montembeault.
Yeah.
And I think the Habs are willing to give him a little runway here.
Yeah, and you know what? When you have 2 young goalies and you don't really know who is going to be your number one or if it's a 1A, 1B, it's more of a win you're in situation, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, he played well last week. He earned another start. I think some people on Saturday were expecting, maybe Montembeault to come in or what have you. And obviously, he kind of got the reins there the other night. So I think, like, they're comfortable going back and forth with them. If it's an internal fight, go for it. Claim the net. Whoever it is, we'll roll with. I think everywhere else is kind of where they're looking at it. And the interesting thing, as I was alluding to earlier with Matheson and his responsibilities, he had over 60 points a couple of years ago. He had 51 assists, 11 goals, whatever it was. I think 62, 63 points. He doesn't need to be that guy anymore because they have Hudson and they have Noah Dobson. So you want this kind of two-way type of defenseman that's responsible, but can also supply offense when needed. So he doesn't necessarily need to be in that world. He can be in that 30, 40-point range if he's being responsible. I wonder how that's going to affect their negotiation or how it's already affected it in terms of just his usage.
Yeah, and I think for the Montreal Canadiens, they're just a team that kind of wants to stay under the radar. And I know it's Montreal, and I know it's hard to do, but they play their way and they keep quiet. Those wins will keep piling up. Heat is turning up as we stay in Canada. See what I did there? The heat is turning up in Calgary. David, yes.
Pretty good.
I'll be here all season. You can tune in every Wednesday, make sure. Craig Conroy and his team. You mentioned big fish hunting. You mentioned teams, looking for someone and maybe want someone. The Calgary Flames have not got off to a good start. It's no secret. They had an MVP caliber goalie last season in Dustin Wolf, has not got off to the same start, isn't getting any help in front of him, and there's a lot of big fish on that roster.
There are. Yeah, man, there are guys on this team that a lot of other teams wouldn't mind getting their hands on.
Uh-huh.
You know, we obviously know about Rasmus Anderson. He's going to be moved at some point. I think the more the season goes in this direction, the more it just amplifies that he will absolutely be traded. But there are other pieces, as I said, like I mean, we've heard Nazem Kadri's name out there, and they explored it the last couple of off seasons. Nothing overly serious got going, so they said, nah, we're going to keep it going. Last season, so many things went right for the Calgary Flames that it's hard to replicate that back-to-back years. You need everything that went right last season to go right again this season, and you need some other guys to take steps, like some of the younger kids. It's very hard for all of that to kind of happen at the same time. So, you know, do we hear Kadri's name as the season progresses? Do we hear Blake Coleman? Like, he's a guy that a lot of playoff-bound teams would love to get their hands on, to have that caliber player on their roster. That mid-six kind of body that is willing to be aggressive and that has won before. You know, there are going to be players on this team. Mackenzie Weegar's name always seems to pop up just because he's really good and everyone likes him. But Craig Conroy is going to have a decision to make here at some point this season if they can't kind of get back on track. Like, there are teams that are looking at this going, you know, they're kind of like sneakily going, oh, okay, let's see if they can keep it going, because I'd love to be able to pounce and try to get player X, Y, or Z. So, again, early, yes, but, you know, the points now are just as valuable as the points in March and April. And I don't think a team like Calgary that made some great strides last year and were right there can afford to take too many steps back without having to go through that retool process that they've effectively been delaying.
I want to ask you this question, not in regards to the Calgary Flames, but kind of in general when you look at it and it comes to players and rentals. I know we're a long way away from there, but how many more teams now, with our favorite words, cap going up, are going to look at guys with 2 or 3 more years left on their deal and say, okay, if our window is in a year or the next year, we can suck up 2 years after that. Or we're going to be willing to take a hit on another 2 years if this guy's going to put us over just for this season.
It's a lot more palatable now, like a lot. Like, this is because of the cap going up, and because teams know what the projections are. It allows them to do their business a lot differently than they have in previous years. Yeah. Like, we know the projection for next year's cap and the cap after that. You know, and those numbers are probably going up anyway. But at least we know it's going to be, you know, 104 to 108 range next season. And the season after that will be 113.5 to 118 range, most likely, maybe more, but most likely in that kind of proximity. So teams can plan a lot better in terms of making adjustments to their roster that include guys that have additional term. And the other thing too, Irf, is, you know, because teams have that cap space now as well, you know, some teams are open to making moves. They don't know how it's going to go because they've never had this opportunity, but making moves earlier in the season than later. Like, you know, teams have liked to accrue cap space and wait to give themselves that opportunity to pounce for the right guy that they want. But because a lot of teams have more wiggle room now financially with the cap, like we just mentioned Montreal, the Habs have like $5 million right now in space. They've never had that type of space to play with in the last few years. So it's a little bit different, but we'll see kind of, you know, if anybody does activate sooner than later. And at the same time, our team's willing to entice other clubs to make those types of moves. Like, if Calgary is selling, or at least willing to explore that, if a team comes in and says, tell you what, let's just get this over with now, you know, I'll give you a third instead of a fourth, or a third instead of a fifth, or something like that. I'll up it a little bit because I can afford to do this financially, and I just want to get it out of the way, and I don't want my rival or, you know, the two teams that I'm probably going to be chasing to pick up this kind of guy.
Will teams be willing to pay more early instead of pay a more premium at the deadline to get the guy they want? Because before, we've seen, you know, other teams, if they know that they're a bottom feeder in the NHL, they're going to wait and see what they can get. But will teams be willing to do that now with the way the cap's going and with the way that different things are happening?
I think so. I mean, it's going to be situational based on, player and whatnot. But, like I said, if there are teams that are in the mix for guys and they can eliminate, like Dallas last year, they pulled the trigger on getting Granlund and Ceci from San Jose. What was it? End of January, beginning of February. I can't remember what the day was, but like right around there. And that was over a month before the trade deadline, to prevent Colorado, that had interest in Granlund at the time, and Winnipeg and some of the others to perhaps pursue those guys. So I think, yeah, okay, I'll give you a little bit extra here if we're going to do this today. If we're not, don't expect the same, willingness or package that I'm willing to give you in March, as opposed to wherever, November, December, January.
Let's stick with the Stars. That's a pretty good segue there. You did that without even knowing that we were going there. Right. See how in sync we are sometimes?
It's working. It's working.
It's a lot of years when these two brains can work together at the same time. It's a lot of years of a lot of long miles on these two bodies. But how active do you expect Jim Nill to be here in the short term, and maybe even the longer term when it comes in terms of getting extensions? And also, we will get Jim Nill on at some point on this show in the next couple of weeks. We are going to do that. But my question is, how aggressive do you think he's going to be soon to not only improve his hockey team, but try and lock up a couple guys?
Well, he's got two key guys that they've continued to go back and forth with that are pending RFAs next summer. Obviously, Jason Robertson being the big one, but how much bigger than Thomas Harley? I'm not sure. Those are two guys, RFAs. I can tell you the conversations continue between both. There's nothing really to report on either of those two guys with respect to, at least as of late last night, nothing really close there, but the conversations continue. I don't get the sense that there's worry. Maybe there should be, because these guys are going to command a significant pay increase and eat up a lot of their cap, but it doesn't sound like from the player side they're worried. And I don't get the sense that Nill and the Stars are overly concerned right now either. There's still a long pathway before we get to July 1, and they got business at hand. So, what I could tell you is, that the conversations are still fluid. They're ongoing. The doors are open and so on and so forth. But I don't really get the sense there's much of a concern there. Now, how much do they add is going to just depend on where they're situated later on in the season. I don't think they're going to do too much just yet. They might, if something just completely falls into their lap. But I still think they want to see how this team is going to form itself before, kind of looking to make any type of additions or adjustments. Not the greatest L. I mean, getting a loss is not great, but the last one they had the other night wasn't.
Thanks, Dave.
Wasn't good. Yeah, I know. Insight. This is premium crap right here. This is why you come to us. But like the last one was a little rough. I don't think they're going to judge it based on one game. They're going to keep things going, but we'll see kind of, where they end up and where they go. But at least on the Harley and Robertson side, it's kind of status quo. But I guess the good sign is that the lines of communication are still open.
Okay, let's talk about the Super Bowl media day that isn't happening for the NHL now on Long Island ahead of the Olympics. That was going to be a big event, and players were all going to be there before they departed on their different flights to Italy, and now it's not happening, and the league and the PA are like, no, let's let these guys get ready for their, tournaments in Milan. What's the latest there, and kind of what was in the decision behind that?
Yeah, it's from an event perspective, nothing. Everybody's going to fly to New York, however many Olympians it is. They're going to do a little media session and do a little chit chat with everybody, and that's it. Like, there's no special event. There's no, big grandioso thing. It's just a press conference. Like that's pretty much all it is. Everybody at podiums and away we go. And then everybody jumps on the charters and goes overseas, assuming they finish the frickin' rink. So that's kind of important. So that's pretty much it. We know that the All-Star game in 27 is going to be there. They're going to have a normal All-Star weekend festivities. They really want to mimic, though, what happened in Toronto at the last All-Star weekend. That was a huge success. They had celebs coming in that they didn't even invite. They just came in because they wanted to be part of the shenanigans. And being in New York, yes, it's on Long Island, where the game and everything is. I do think a lot of the festivities are going to be kind of spread out a little bit. So we may see some events taking place, in New York City, in Manhattan, in Chelsea, wherever. There are some places that are trying to make some events happen. That'll be complementary to the weekend itself. Some are league driven, some are not. But they're trying to make the whole thing be another like citywide party, which was kind of what happened in Toronto with a bunch of different events. Like Justin Bieber did a private show on the East End, like 20 minutes from the arena. So I think we'll see something similar with that happening in New York, and with the game and the skills competition taking place at UBS.
Well, I will await my itinerary when that happens from you. So thank you for that.
I may know somebody hosting a party, but I'll fill you in.
We'll definitely figure it out. NHL International. You see the success that it's had in Europe. And we went to Prague a few years ago, and that was awesome. Obviously, going to Stockholm and going to all these different countries has been great. You see the success of the NFL, and it's NFL International. They're going to Brazil, they're going to Berlin, they're in London, they're everywhere. What do we know about the future of global events for the National Hockey League?
They want to do the same. They want to grow it. They want to keep it going. They want games. I know they tried doing Paris for a while. That may still happen. A lot of ties with the Habs associated with that. But we'll see kind of where that goes. They'd like to go back to London. They haven't been there in a while. I think the Ducks and the Kings were there a number of years ago. They'd like to make that happen. They'd like to expand their footprint in some of the other European cities, countries. Germany is certainly, they want to do something larger there. They're looking at, potentially in a few years after Olympics, go back to Italy, do something there. Like, they're open to a variety of different possibilities, but they want to expand within the European markets, as well as, they were in Australia a couple of years ago, and the Coyotes at the time and the LA Kings. My understanding there was this was going to be a multi-year thing. It was going to be spread out, but it was going to be a multi-year kind of thing. They'd like to go back. They'd like to do that. Now, that was done a little bit differently. They had a company that kind of came in to kind of organize everything for them to an extent. I think they're just fine-tuning some of that, but they'd like to go back to Australia and in that market, and they really want to expand their footprint across Europe. So I would expect in the next few years, as early as next season, to be more games being played on different ends of the pond. Maybe not necessarily Australia right away, but they may wait a couple years on that. But definitely across Europe, they'd like to do some more there.
Hockey Down Under. Sign me up for it.
Yeah, I'd go. I'd check that out. I've never been down there, so let's do it. Let's talk to do a show from down there. See if it's in the budget.
we should do a show from. Anything else on your mind, buddy? You want to get off your chest or anything going on that we didn't mention?
Well, I throw, we started with Ottawa and talking about the Senators looking and exploring. I throw Carolina in that mix too. Yeah. The Hurricanes are another team that, as we've seen, not afraid to take big swings. They took the big swing on Rantanen. It didn't work out. They took the big swing on Gensel before that. Didn't really work out. But at least in Rantanen side, they ended up flipping him and getting a strong young piece and some other additional assets. And then they go out this summer and they sign, Nick Ehlers and get him into the mix and whatnot. I see them being another team that, in that big fish hunting vibe in that bracket, in addition to the Sens. The Sens want to do it because they want another star power there. And let's see if they find the right move and what type of, blockbuster type of deal they may potentially make. Carolina, similar position, but also with definitive eyes zoned in on the Stanley Cup. They want to go after that. And, Tom Dundon gets a misunderstood rap from an ability to spend, a willingness to spend. But if it means winning, he'll do that.
I mean, he just bought the Trailblazers, so they spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money there.
Yeah, he did that. They're renovating the crap out of the outside the arena and everything there in the Lenovo Center. So, they're building like a really cool. Them along with the university are building a really cool like pregame tailgate area like bleachers and suites and this whole runway thing. So that's going to be pretty cool once that comes in. But I mean, overall, like they want to win. They really, really, really want to win. And I could definitely see Carolina being one of the teams in the mix, at the very least, trying hard to take another huge swing this season. So add them to the mix.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it, Dave. Got through a lot. Went Ottawa, Calgary, Montreal, Carolina, Dallas, the NHL as a whole. I think that does it for us for this episode of DFO Rundown Insider. We'll be back next week. We'll see. We'll maybe have a guest on this program. So hopefully we'll do that. But thank you to everybody for watching, liking, subscribing, all that. Thanks to our producer, Jacob Lazar, for pushing buttons, making us look good. And we will see you next week.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.